Today, we're going to peel back the gorgeous, gilded frame on some of the world's most famous works of art. Because behind all that beauty is a reality that was brutal, toxic, and, well, downright smelly. So think of this as your personal survival guide to a Renaissance art studio.
So, let's just start with a question. You think your job is stressful? I mean, we all have those days, right? The Zoom calls that never end, the deadlines that feel impossible. But let's get a little perspective.
Yeah. On the left, you've got a pretty bad day at a modern office. But on the right, that's just a regular Tuesday for a 15th century art apprentice. We're not talking about minor annoyances here. We're talking about daily, life-threatening hazards. All of a sudden, that back-to-back meeting schedule doesn't seem quite so terrible, does it?
Okay, so picture this. You've just been accepted into a master's workshop in Florence. Amazing, right? Well, congratulations. Now you have one job, one goal for the next, 10 years or so. Just survive.
And forget about fetching coffee for the boss. Your very first task, every single morning, is to prepare the master's pigments. And trust me, this isn't just about mixing a few colors. It's a grueling, physically demanding, and unbelievably dangerous job.
What's really wild is how simple and yet how deadly this whole process was. You as the apprentice would spend hours, and I mean hours, hunched over a mortar and pestle, grinding down these toxic rocks and minerals into a superfine dust, a dust that just filled the air you were breathing. Then you'd mix it with a binder. That could be linseed oil, egg yolk, or sometimes, believe it or not, urine. But the real kicker is that last step. Trying not to inhale the poisonous dust? Yeah, that was pretty much impossible.
And this table really shows you the hidden cost of every color. You want a brilliant, shining white? Well, that came from lead, a known neurotoxin. How about a vibrant, rich red? That's from cinnabar, which is a mercury ore that causes tremors and organ failure. And that beautiful, lush green for the landscapes? A lot of the time, that was made with arsenic. You weren't just an artist in training. You were slowly, day by day, poisoning yourself.
Now, let's think about a true masterpiece. Something just breathtaking, like Leonardo da Vinci's Adoration of the Magi. You look at it and it feels like a work of pure, divine genius.
But here's what's really in that painting. Every bright highlight, every deep fold in a red robe, every single leaf on every tree, it was all created using these poisons. The long, agonizing hours that some poor, forgotten apprentice spent grinding and mixing are literally baked into the DNA of this beautiful work of art.
And if you think that toxic paint was the only problem, think again. It wasn't just the materials that could kill you. The place where you worked and lived was just as hazardous. Historians have actually found descriptions of 15th century cities that use phrases exactly like this one, the monster of stink. And your workshop? It was right in the thick of it.
You see, this wasn't just a bad smell. It was the smell of sickness. You had open sewers flowing right outside the window, basically no concept of personal hygiene, animal waste all over the streets. The workshop itself was a breeding ground for bacteria. So you were breathing in poison dust on the inside and disease-ridden air from the outside. A total nightmare.
So after all of that, the poison, the filth, the back-breaking labor, you must have been paid pretty well, right? Ha. Well, let's talk about what you actually earned.
Your pay could basically be summed up as the minimum you need so you don't die. Seriously, you'd get a place to sleep, some food, and maybe a tiny amount of money. The whole point wasn't for you to get ahead or save up. It was just to keep you alive enough to come back and grind more poison the next day.
And this chart right here, it tells the whole story. The master artist, he takes the lion's share of any money from a big project. A pretty big chunk goes to buying more supplies. More lead, more mercury. And you get that tragically tiny little sliver at the very bottom. That's it.
So, all of this means that when we stand in a quiet, clean museum and stare at a Renaissance masterpiece, we're really only seeing half the picture. It's so easy to forget the true and very human price that was paid to create it.
And this brings us to a really difficult idea to grapple with. We have these timeless, eternal works of beauty, and they exist only because of the temporary, but very, very real suffering of countless people whose names we'll never know. Their health, their labor, their actual lives. They were just more raw materials for the masterpiece.
Which leaves us with this one big, lingering question. When you look at the incredible beauty that's lasted for centuries, and you now know the human cost, was the price worth it?